To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
So I have a confession to make. So recently you guys may have noticed that I've been on a bit of a Tomorrowland kick. And that's no one's fault but my own, and I think I need to address that. And it's not easy for me to say this, but I mean, I may have an obsession with Tomorrowland. Not the movie, the land at the Disney parks. And so I feel that there's no better way to address this than by making another Tomorrowland video. This time it's Space Mountain! Space Mountain, the final frontier. Whether you're from Anaheim, Orlando, or Paris, Space Mountain probably holds a very special place in your heart. It's one of those e-ticket attractions that, when it opened, it was revolutionary. It was a massive deal for the park. Wait, are you saying Disney's building a roller coaster inside with dark ride elements, all synced to music? Yep, pretty much. There's so much we could talk about with Space Mountain, the exterior, the interior, the track itself, or even the story it's trying to tell. What, just because it's a roller coaster doesn't mean it can't have a story? I've actually done a video on the story, the combined lore of all of the Space Mountains a long time ago. If you look in the description down below, I will link it. But essentially, you're an interstellar tourist or test subject traveling the cosmos. Now, we could talk Space Mountain story theories all day, but instead we're going to be talking about history. I know, everyone loves Disney history. But upon recently visiting the Walt Disney Family Museum and seeing Walt Disney's original idea for Space Mountain, I figured why not do a video on it? If this is an attraction that was in Walt Disney's head that eventually made the transition to the parks after his death, without him really having any say in it because he was dead, and it's still turning out to be an amazing treasured Disney attraction, this could possibly be the best Disney attraction. Well, hold on, everybody, I'm getting ahead of myself. This video is a thrilling, turbulent, high-speed roller coaster type video in the dark. It includes sharp turns, sudden drops, and stops. You are now ready for your intergalactic adventure. This is the Space Mountain story. A long time ago in a galaxy far, wait, no, where'd this come from? Not so long ago on this planet specifically, Walt Disney had an idea for a brand new e-ticket attraction in both Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. That ride would be the Matterhorn bobsleds. After the Matterhorn opened to amazing reception from guests, Walt Disney started designing yet another thrill ride for Disneyland. This roller coaster, instead of being located on the fence between Fantasyland and Tomorrowland, would be located solely in Tomorrowland. Because back in those days, and these days, I guess, people agreed that Tomorrowland needed something more. Not saying Tomorrowland back then was bad, I mean, they had the Astro Jets and those were sweet. And also the People Mover, but yeah, whatever. No, it wasn't those reasons. Because the steel tubular roller coaster was the future of roller coasters and the Matterhorn was the first of its kind, why not build another one at Disneyland? It is at this point that Walt turned to one of his animators and employees at WED, John Hench, to create concept art for this new attraction. John was really skilled at sketching futuristic landscapes, so he did a lot of the concept art for Tomorrowland. He also worked on other attractions like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and the Enchanted Tiki Room back when it was still going to be a dinner show, so that's pretty cool. The original concept art featured a more whimsical Space Mountain with a track winding around the outside of the attraction. The older Space Mountain also featured a lot more spires than are present on today's, but Walt's original idea for Space Mountain still lives on today. WED, which is, for those of you who don't know, the equivalent to Walt Disney Imagineering today, teamed up with the Aero Development Company, the same company that helped design the Matterhorn years before. They were going to build a brand new indoor futuristic roller coaster in Tomorrowland, and hopefully this time a lot less painful than the Matterhorn. The original concept for the Tomorrowland roller coaster featured 4 tracks, which is double the amount the Matterhorn has. The capacity of this attraction would have been a dream with 4 tracks, but because of Disneyland's size and the technology available at the time, the design was pretty much impossible to pull off. When December of 1966 rolled around, Walt Disney unfortunately died, and WED, or Imagineering at the time, shifted their focus away from Disneyland to build the brand new Walt Disney World in Orlando, which meant, unfortunately for the time being, the Space Mountain project was shelved. Disneyland would not get its indoor Tomorrowland e-ticket roller coaster for another decade. With the Magic Kingdom in Florida's early success though, WED began planning new thrill rides for the park shortly after it opened in 1971. Originally, Disney wanted to build a brand new Matterhorn at Walt Disney World. They did not. This is because the new Matterhorn wouldn't fit properly heavily into Florida's Fantasyland at the time. Oh, but nowadays they could definitely fit a Matterhorn in there. Look at that, their Fantasyland is huge! With Walt Disney World's Matterhorn scrapped, Imagineers reopened the Space Mountain project, the one that Walt Disney, John Hench, and very few other WED employees had worked on back in the 60s. It was decided that the roller coaster would be built outside of the park on the opposite side of the train tracks that act as sort of a perimeter to the area. That way guests would have to make their way through all of Tomorrowland to the very back to get to the massive, sprawling complex that housed the roller coaster. Not because they wanted guests' feet to get tired though, but because they wanted a brand new icon for Tomorrowland, something to loom over the entire area and made guests wonder what was back in that massive complex. Space Mountain opened heavily inspired by John Hench's original concept art on January 15th of 1975, and the Disneyland Space Mountain would open 2 years later in 1977. Although they never actually ended up building a Matterhorn in Florida, the track for Space Mountain there is heavily inspired by the Matterhorns. You could even say that it's the same. See, it's got the 2 loading zones just like the Matterhorn at Disneyland, it's got the initial lift hill just like the Matterhorn at Disneyland where the 2 rockets go side to side, and it knocks your entire skeleton out of place when you're riding it just like the Matterhorn. Disneyland's Space Mountain, on the other hand, is nice and smooth and features a soundtrack written by Michael Giacchino to reflect that. Over the years, they've attempted to change the exterior of the attraction, like I talked about in the last video, painting it green and gold, which was not a good idea. And the Space Mountain in Orlando contains different references to Horizons. You know, that defunct closed down ride from Epcot that everyone loves and wishes came back? That Horizons. Over the years, many more Space Mountains have opened up across the entire world. Space Mountain Mission 2 in Paris, Space Mountain in Tokyo, and Disney keeps updating Space Mountain with overlays like Ghost Galaxy and Deep Space Mountain in Florida. So let me know down in the comments below, why is it that you like Space Mountain so much, or why is it that you dislike Space Mountain so much? And do you prefer Disneyland or Walt Disney World's version of the attraction? For me, it's Disneyland. Disneyland all the way. I think I can safely say whether it's your first time riding it or your 100th time riding it, Space Mountain never really gets old. And having survived it myself, I can safely say that it's one of my favorite Disney attractions ever. And I couldn't think of a good way to end this video. No funny jokes, no plays on words here. I'm out of ideas, honestly. So I guess there's nothing else to say except thanks for watching, space travelers. Nah, that's not good either.